Well, thank you. I think one of the things you helped me see was you can blend all of you,
Yeah.
all of me in this case, all into one piece. Ministry and business and creativity and love of people and connecting all those dots. That is where I had to think about it's okay to talk about all that in one run-on sentence. It's okay
Yes.
to combine all of that. And I think that probably was a, for those of you who are entrepreneurs out there, that may have been be a stop for you of, oh, this is me over here and this is me over here. And what finally came together with this new branding was this is me. This,
Yep.
all this is this weird combination. As I said at our wedding, it was the first time I looked around. I said, "Oh, all my weird groups of people are in one room."
I love
It's
that.
almost like all my weird things about me are in
Yeah.
one. And I can call it work, and I can call it fun,
Yeah.
and I can have people around me.
Yeah,
So that's
it makes me think of a word that's like kind of paralleled differently than genius, but like quirky, right? Like when people have all these different quirks about them and they think like, oh, I can show my humor. You mentioned humor. I can show my humor here, but that would be very unprofessional if I did that when I'm wearing my suit jacket in the boardroom. And I totally disagree with that. I think it's what makes you connecting. It makes you relatable. It makes you actually allows other people to tear down their own walls or preconceived notions about what does this atmosphere, how is it supposed to be? And it in this context really makes me think of the church, right? When you think about different denominations, you expect when you walk into a specific denomination, it's going to look like this, it's going to feel like this is going to be it. And it's generally not, I mean, it's wrong. It's not supposed to be that way. And if we break down those silos and we come together in all of our quirks, we then tap into our genius.
quirks are my favorite thing. I mean, quirky, weird, all those words are
Yeah.
compliments to me. I like those words, and I think also it's the. I talk a lot about connections and intersections. I would
Yeah.
say making connections with people and also making connections with ideas that may not make sense.
Mm,
So I call them contradictory constructs changing into complementary concepts.
so good.
Two things that don't make sense. I'll work with two groups that one speaks HR and one speaks finance. And we talk about what's that intersection that makes things streamlined. We can create processes that work for both. I work with people in banking and art. I work with people all across. And to me, my most favorite thing about that is that they don't make sense together, and yet you can find the alignment. And in that intersection and that connection, you can find the alignment and it brings it out. I mean, talking to a university president that is also an artist, you're talking to
Yeah.
a chef who's also a banker, you talk to a scientist who also has does farming and
Yeah.
horticulture.
Yeah.
That
It's so
that's what
true.
and that's what I have on my show, the Hey Genius Show, is people that bring those ideas together or have taken a particular change trajectory in their career or their life
Well,
and
that
help.
like excites me, and I hope it excites the listener. One, to recognize that you can tie in some of those things that you thought were only meant for those different eras or seasons of life, even, or with specific people, even, and try to start adding them in places like test the waters, right? And see what it's like to also be mom in the boardroom or also be playful in the mastermind, right? And understand that when you do that, you start to break down your own silos, because I think that's really where a lot of people stand. When I think about your methodology about like process matching creativity, right? Which you've got the curate, the create, and I'm sorry, cultivate, create,
Connect,
curate.
cultivate, curate, like
Say
connect,
it again.
cultivate, create, curate.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Because the connection is the starting place, right? And then what
Everything.
do you do from there?
Hmm.
It's
Everything we
so good.
do is that process
And
that
how do
you
you
guys
do that
help us
specifically
figure
for
out.
leaders? Because I think the leader part is a lot of the people, right? FIT stands for founders, innovators, and trailblazers. There's a lot of leaders listening to this show, and the forefront of this conversation is awesome. But like, how do you get into the nitty gritty of that when you're leading a group of people or an individual leader?
It's a great question, and thank you for it. I work with leaders of leaders. So if you are a leader that's just trying to climb the ladder and do your thing, there are lots of people that can work with you. That's not me. I work with leaders of leaders. In other words, I want to work with leaders who are also wanting to develop other people, other leaders. And that ripple effect to me is part of why I do what I do. And I think I find it is part of being, I don't know, open enough or crazy enough to do the kinds of things you were just saying, to have the humor, to do the strange things, to think, I'll be saying, yes, I plan. My favorite law is the law of contradiction. I plan so I can be spontaneous.
Ah,
So you
so
plan,
good.
and then you're going to see that group. So, for instance, it was interesting. So, Thursday, I was with a whole group. I was emceeing a group with a whole group of speakers. Okay, as you know, we're live wires. We
Yeah, we
are.
are. It's so hard for us to be quiet.
You can kind of do anything with speakers. You can be funky, you can be fun, you can make them laugh. And the next day, I'm with a group of lawyers, judges, politicians, executives,
Oh,
corporate
wow.
leaders, and state government leaders.
Oh, wow.
You know what? I did the same thing.
Ah,
We
it's so
cutting up,
good.
and I started off cutting up, and it was all about them. They dove in so deeply.
Wow.
They got it, and they opened up, and we were able to go deep quickly, even in that scenario, because
That's
we were talking
awesome.
about their genius. That is exciting for me, and that's what I think I've finally, way down the path, getting comfortable with.
Embraced.
It works
Yeah.
for everybody. It works for everybody. We're all geniuses, and everybody wants to have their genius exposed.
I love it. I think that exposure concept is unique, right? Because there's a discovery process, and a lot of people do that work. But the
Mhm.
exposure process is what actually takes it to the next level so that it can actually enable you and, again, connect you powerfully to somebody else. Because if we don't expose us, and I think this is also connected even to our hard like parts, our friction parts of our lives, when
Mhm.
I have been quiet about something, rather than vocalizing it or asking for help or sharing, then I can't connect with people in the same way as when I'm walking through the fire and I'm like, "Hey y'all, I'm burning over here," right? Then the people come to connect and share and support outward. So I'd love to hear, like, from that thought pattern, they're in the contradictions, in the mess, in the connections. You surely hear a lot of trials and tribulations when these different groups or even this individual leader, they can't figure it out. There's friction there. Otherwise, they wouldn't be hiring you.
I do think about that. Leaders are, sometimes we think if we're already leaders, especially if we've been leaders for a while, in whatever area that is, if you're entrepreneur, corporate leader, university leader, all kinds of things, church leader, we tend to think that we have to have it all together.
Yeah.
I don't mean that you have to show every single thing, but I think we think we've got to have the answers. We talked about this a lot this weekend at a retreat I led. At that retreat I was just mentioning, we talked about how you don't have to have the answers. I'm a proponent of having the questions.
That's good.
If you ask good questions, people will open up. And I think sometimes we get nervous because we think, oh, before I go talk to that group or that leader or that CEO or that chairman of the board, I've got to have all the answers. I find in our practice, we just have to have really good questions.